All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're peeling back the layers on something kinda wild, how perfectly normal everyday artwork somehow transforms into terrifying urban legends. We're gonna explore this bizarre crossroads where art, media hype, human psychology, and, believe it or not, modern e-commerce all collide. I mean, how does a basic piece of canvas or a cheap, mass-produced print go from just hanging in your grandma's living room to sparking absolute nationwide panic or viral internet hysteria? Let's find out.
To wrap our heads around this, we really need to start with the chilling lore behind two famous pieces of art that completely terrified the public. It sets this perfect, spooky campfire story tone before we dive into the cold, hard facts of how these legends were actually built. So think about it. Can a mass-produced painting really burn your house down? Or can the figures painted inside an oil canvas physically crawl out of their frames in the middle of the night? Well, millions of people at different points in history genuinely believe the answer was absolutely yes.
Okay, so our story actually begins back in September of 1985 with a working-class family in the UK. The Hall family lived in a coal mining village and experienced a truly devastating house fire. It started as a simple chip pan fire in the kitchen, but it completely gutted the downstairs of their home. Yet, and here's where it gets weird, inexplicably, a cheap, mass-produced print of a crying urchin, literally known as the crying boy, survived the fierce flames totally untouched. The local paper, The Star, ran a story saying the family believed a curse had struck them. And this fear was totally fueled by a relative who was a firefighter who claimed that for some reason, these specific prints always seemed to survive blazes unharmed.
Now let's fast forward 15 years to the year 2000, and the campfire basically moves over to the early internet. A 1972 painting titled The Hands Resist Him randomly surfaces on an eBay auction. The sellers claim they found it at an abandoned brewery, which is creepy enough. But they also stated that the eerie figures inside the painting, a boy and this weird doll-like girl, literally moved at night. They even said sometimes the boy would just step out of the frame entirely. No surprise, the listing exploded. It racked up over 30,000 views, which was huge back then, and became legendary online simply as the eBay haunted painting.
Section 1. The Media Engines, Manufacturing a Curse.
You know, a creepy painting is really just a creepy painting, right? Up until a powerful media engine gets a hold of it and gives it legs. This comparison brilliantly illustrates the evolution of how media amplifies these things. On one hand, you've got the print era of sensationalized newspapers, specifically the UK tabloid The Sun back in 1985, and on the other, you've got the digital era of viral e-commerce listings and early internet forums from the year 2000. Both platforms basically did the exact same thing. They took a localized, bizarre little anecdote and injected it straight into the mainstream consciousness, just using the unique tools of their own eras to manufacture an absolute frenzy.
Looking at the timeline shows you exactly how a tiny local newspaper brief was deliberately escalated by The Sun. I mean, they saw this local story about the Hall family and just blew it up. Before you knew it, they were publishing stories of supposedly terrified readers claiming their houses burned down because of the print too. The hysteria reached such a fever pitch that The Sun actually offered to destroy the prints for the readers. And get this, it culminated in a massive, highly publicized Halloween bonfire where a scantily clad model helped burn literally 2,500 cursed crying boy prints, all under the supervision of some very bemused firefighters. You literally can't make this stuff up.
So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is that the tabloid editors, they were not looking for the truth. Not at all. They just saw a story with massive entertainment value and pushed it hard. Kelvin McKenzie, who was the editor of The Sun at the time, reportedly took one look at the initial crying boy story and declared, "This one's got legs." It was the classic silly season for news, and he just needed a spectacle to sell papers and crush the rival tabloids. So the curse wasn't actually born from anything supernatural. It was literally born in a bustling London newsroom.
Actually, to keep this whole legend alive, the media conveniently chose to ignore the actual experts. The fire chief Mick Riley even issued a statement completely debunking the curse. He clearly explained that the real reason these cheap prints frequently survived intense house fires was just because they were printed on a high-density hardboard material, a material that happens to be extremely difficult to ignite. It was just basic fire safety science. But, you know, a fire-resistant piece of cardboard doesn't exactly fly off the newsstands, so the tabloids completely ignored his incredibly logical explanation.
Meanwhile, Jump forward 15 years, and the eBay legend thrived for a similar reason, except this time the sellers acted as their own tabloid editors. They crafted this brilliant, super eerie narrative to sell The Hands Resist Him. They even threw in a liability disclaimer to legally absolve themselves if the buyer was somehow harmed by the curse. They claimed the doll in the painting threatened a boy with a gun, which, by the way, the artist later clarified was literally just a dry cell battery and some tangled wires. But this masterful storytelling tapped right into the early internet's obsession with haunted objects, and thousands of viewers started claiming they felt nausea and intense dread just from looking at the digital images.
Section 2. The psychological reality, fear, and misinterpretation.
So, why do these specific artworks resonate so deeply with our subconscious fears? Well, it starts with this wild contrast between the artist's actual intent and the public's perception. Bill Stoneham, the artist who painted The Hands Resist Him back in 1972, based it on a poem his wife wrote about his childhood. That boy in the painting? It's just a 5-year-old Stoneham. The door is supposed to be the dividing line between the waking world and fantasy, and the hands just represent alternate possibilities. It was a deeply personal piece of art. Yet, the public entirely erased his intent. They completely projected their own twisted reality onto it, deciding instead that it was some kind of demonic portal.
When we really strip away all the media hype, we have to stop and ask, why on earth did people physically feel ill looking at a digital photo of a painting on a clunky computer screen in the year 2000? Skeptics correctly pointed out that this is just a classic psychological phenomenon. People experience supernatural symptoms based purely on expectation. It's the power of suggestion. When someone tells you an image is going to make you feel a deep sense of dread, your brain is pretty good at just playing along and making that happen.
But to be fair, it is also about the art itself. The real answer to why it's so incredibly creepy lies in the uncanny valley. You've probably heard of this. It's that psychological effect where lifelike objects that aren't quite perfectly human evoke this intense feeling of discomfort and unease. Stoneham's work hits this out of the park. The stiff, doll-like girl holding that strange device, those disembodied gray hands pressing against the glass behind a young, overly serious kid, it all taps directly into our deep-seated subconscious anxieties. It just feels wrong to our brains on a totally primal level.
Folklore experts actually look at these artworks and classify them as what's called proto-legends. Essentially, they're like undeveloped, fragmentary rumors, just waiting around for a story to attach to. Because the original mass-produced crying boy prints lacked any sort of coherent backstory or even a known artist for a long time, they acted like blank canvases. And, society absolutely abhors a vacuum, so we naturally fill that narrative void by projecting our deepest cultural fears, like the very real terror of a sudden house fire, straight onto the ambiguous sad eyes of a painted child.
And make no mistake, this kind of psychological projection, it has tremendous financial value. Despite the reported nausea, the fainting, the sheer dread, that psychological intrigue drove the final eBay bid for The Hands Resist Him from an initial starting price of $199 all the way up to over $1,000. A gallery in Michigan ultimately bought it for exactly $1,025.00. So when you get down to it, the curse was essentially just a phenomenal marketing campaign powered entirely by collective human psychology.
Section 3. The commercial punchline. Regulating the supernatural.
So how has the modern digital marketplace actually adapted to all these viral ghost stories? Well, if you go and look at eBay's prohibited items list today, it is a truly fascinating read. You've got all the standard things you'd expect to see: human body parts, counterfeit items, stuff promoting illegal activity. But nestled right in there alongside all of that, the platform explicitly bans intangible items. And they even go out of their way to specify exactly what that means. You literally cannot sell haunted objects, curses, or magic spells on their platform.
Which brings us to this rather hilarious commercial reality. Their rule specifically states, items that can't be confirmed by buyers are not allowed to list. Because of viral phenomena exactly like our haunted painting back in the year 2000, massive, multi-billion-dollar e-commerce platforms literally had to sit down and draft corporate legal rules banning the sale of the supernatural. They had to step in and officially stop people from monetizing the uncanny valley and these proto-legends. It's pretty amazing.
The whole journey of these cursed artworks perfectly encapsulates a much larger trend. It shows us exactly how a mixture of eerie aesthetics, deliberate media engineering by savvy editors and online sellers, and just basic human crowd psychology can fundamentally alter both digital commerce and art history. Think about it. An artist's personal, heartfelt poem about his childhood somehow became a banned category on a global auction site. That right there is the sheer, undeniable power of digital culture.
So, I'm going to leave you with this thought to ponder today. We've seen how a cheap, mass-produced print from a department store and a highly personal gallery painting became legendary conduits for our deepest anxieties. In an age where literally any image, video, or object can go globally viral in a matter of seconds, what perfectly innocent object will be the next canvas for our collective fears? Seriously, what is the internet going to curse next? Thanks for learning with me in this explainer today, and always keep questioning what you see.